Hey there, Algebra 1 students. Welcome back. Today what we're going to discuss is the second part of 8.4. So last time we talked about writing numbers in scientific notation, and this video we're going to discuss how to perform operations with numbers that are written in scientific notation. So you should have your note-taking guide out, and what I also want you to do is get your calculator out because we're going to be multiplying and dividing some decimal numbers, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at our first example, and example 1 wants us to take the number 1.3 times 10 to the third, which is in scientific notation, and multiply it by 2.2 times 10 to the 8th power, okay? Now, instead of having to rewrite these numbers in standard form and then multiply them together and then rewrite the answer in scientific notation, what we can do is use our properties of exponents to perform that multiplication without having to do any rewriting. So what we want to do first is I'm going to simply just rearrange our numbers here. So I'm going to write this as 1.3 times 2.2 times 10 to the third times 10 to the 8th power, okay? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to grab your calculator and I want you to simply multiply 1.3 times 2.2. Okay, so what you should get is 2.86. Okay, so then we're going to use our properties of exponents, and if we have the same base, that means we add our exponents together. So we're going to rewrite as 10 to the 3 plus 8. Okay, so then that means our final answer is going to be 2.86 times 10 to the 11th power. Okay, so now our answer matches our problem, which was in scientific notation, so our answer now is in scientific notation. Okay, let's try example number 2 here. So we're going to do the same thing that we did in the last problem. We're going to simply rewrite the problem. So we have 8.5 times 1.7 times our powers of 10. 10 to the 4th times 10 to the 6th power. Okay? So I want you to grab your calculator and I want you to multiply 8.5 times 1.7. What you should get is 14.45. And with our properties of exponents, again, we're going to add our exponents together. So 10 to the 10th power, 4 plus 6. Okay? Now, the proper scientific notation, if we look at our scientific notation a times 10 to the b power, this number, a, is greater than or equal to 1 but less than 10. Okay? So if we look at our number 14.45, that is not a number that is less than 10. So what we need to do is we need to move our decimal place one place to the left. And what that's going to do is that's going to increase our exponent by 1. So our final answer should be 1.445 times 10 to the 11th power. Okay? You always want your final answer in the proper scientific notation. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at number 3 here, which is a slightly different problem. This time we're going to look at dividing numbers in scientific notation. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to split it up, and we're going to kind of split the problem in half here, essentially, okay? So what we're going to say is we're going to say 1.2 divided by 1.6, 1.6, and then we're going to multiply that by our powers of 10, so 10 to the 5th divided by 10 to the 2nd power. Okay, so what I want you to do is grab your calculator and I want you to divide 1.2 by 1.6. And what you should get is 0.75. Okay? Now with our properties of exponents, if we are dividing and we have the same base, what we do is we subtract our exponents. So 10 to the 5th divided by 10 squared gives us 10 to the 3rd power. Okay? Now again, our scientific notation says that this number a cannot be a number that is less than 1. So what we need to do on this one, similar to the last one, is we actually need to move our decimal to the right. And what that's going to do is that's going to subtract 1 from the power of 3. So our final answer is going to be 7.5 times 10 to the 2nd power. Okay? All right. So let's look at this next example. What we're going to do, just like the last one, is go ahead and rewrite it. So we're going to say 9.6 divided by 4.8 times 10 to the 8th divided by 10 to the negative 2. Okay? So I want you to grab your calculator and I want you to divide 9.6 by 4.8. And what you should get out is the number 2. Okay? Now, with our properties of exponents, when we have that negative 2, what we want to do is rewrite it with exponents that are positive. But we can also just subtract them. So we can say 10 to the 8th minus a negative 2. And what that does for us is 2 negatives make a positive. So that's going to be 10 to the positive 10 power. Okay, so that should be actually our final answer right there. 2 times 10 to the power of 10. Okay, let's go ahead and look at example number 5. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to use our properties of exponents. We have 2 separate bases here. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to distribute that exponent to both bases. And that means that we multiply our exponents. So remember the property a to the m raised to the n is equal to a to the m times n. So we are going to be multiplying our exponents. So we're going to rewrite as 1.5 squared times 10 to the negative 4 times 2. Okay? So I want you to go ahead and grab your calculator and I want you to square 1.5. You could also just say 1.5 times 1.5 and you should get 2.25. Okay? Now we're going to have powers of 10 here, so I want to multiply my exponents. Negative 4 times 2 makes a negative 8. And make sure that when you're in your scientific notation that this number a is a number that is greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. So this should be our final answer. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and flip over to the back side here. And what I want you to do is I want you to try a couple of these on your own. You're going to do 2 problems on your own, and all of your answers need to be written in scientific notation. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video. You're going to do both questions, and when you're ready to check your solution, go ahead and hit play, and we'll talk about what the correct answers should be. Okay, so now that you've taken a moment to try out examples 6 and 7, let's talk about the answers here. So on number 6, what I would do is I would go ahead and rewrite the problem as 1.1 times 4.2 times 10 to the 7th times 10 to the second power. Okay? So then I would simply grab my calculator and I would multiply 1.1 by 4.2, and that gives us 4.62. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to combine our exponents here. They have the same base, so we're going to add them together. So 7 plus 2 makes 10 to the 9th, and make sure we're in the proper scientific notation and we don't have to do any adjusting there. Okay? And for number 7, what we'll do is we'll split it up. We'll say 4.5 divided by 1.5 times 10 to the 5th divided by 10 to the negative 3. Okay? So then what I would do next is I would grab my calculator and I would divide 4.5 by 1.5. And what you should get out there is 3. And then what I would do for our powers of 10 here is I would subtract them. So 10 to the 5 take away a negative 3, and those negatives are going to cancel out, so it's going to be 10 raised to the 8th power, because 5 minus a negative 3 is 8. Okay, so that should be your final answer right there. All right, so what you're going to do is go ahead and get started on your homework. Remember, if you have questions at all, I encourage you to visit the Math Tutorial Lab in room F107. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you for the next video.